welcome again to the Skillwork Forum. I'm Tim, and as always, I'm joined here with my partner, Brett, and we gather on this forum to talk about industry issues, emerging trends, and challenges all around the skilled trades and the skilled trades industries. And today, we wanted to talk about this concept that came up in some conversations we had recently, a concept called force multiplication or a force multiplier. So if you're not familiar with this term, we'll kind of break it out a little bit and let you understand it. In a nutshell, a force multiplier is a process or a tool or a tactic that makes everything around it better, stronger, and easily scalable. So the term has its roots in military tactics. I'm a guy that came out of the military, so the term, the textbook definition, when you're thinking about military tactics, and we'll give you some ideas of how that was applied, is this: a factor or combination of factors that gives personnel the ability to accomplish greater feats than without it. Think about an automatic weapon versus a single shot rifle. That's a force multiplier. It took one infantryman able to shoot maybe 6, 8, 10 rounds, in a minute to hundreds of rounds in a minute. So again, as a 25-year military guy coming out of the Navy, we constantly planned our operations and we spent a majority of our time planning. And we talked all the time about how to apply force multiplication, how to apply force multipliers through tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs. And you'll hear that term a lot too. So it's part of our daily lexicon. Think about special forces. When special forces teams were introduced around the Vietnam era, the idea is that you could insert a highly trained, agile 8 to 10, 12-person team that could do all the same capability of a platoon, a larger unit size of maybe several dozen. So that multiplied the capability of a smaller force. In practical terms, think about a hammer. If you use a hammer versus trying to drive something in with your hand, obviously, a carpenter using a hammer can do a lot more work. Or a wheelbarrow. You can move a lot more in a wheelbarrow than you can carrying it. A car jack. Car jack allows you to lift a car where you couldn't do it as a single individual. In manufacturing, Henry Ford, he invented the assembly line. Think about that, the ability for a handful of people to do what used to take hundreds to do. Now we talk about robotics and artificial intelligence. So that's the concept of force multiplication, doing more with less.
Yep. Nope. It's a great term. I'm not a military guy, but I get the benefit of having Tim and because I think a lot of those thoughts and the tactics and behind that, there's a lot of great thought in that we can apply, to other spaces. And so, we talk a lot about in this podcast and in our space, in the skilled trade space, and specifically in the manufacturing world, and we talk a lot about technology. We're heavily into the fourth industrial revolution, the digital transformation, smart manufacturing. All of those are types of force multipliers. And so they enable us in our facilities to do more with less in an efficient way. The reason that we automate is for that exact purpose, is so that we can get more done. I was in a facility last week, Tim, that they were packaging candy, into boxes, and so very automated. Every piece of candy being picked up by a robot arm versus a lot of people with a line going a lot slower because this thing was flying. And so a great example of utilizing robotics or a PLC or that type of thing, in there. But I think sometimes we get kind of enamored, with technology and with robotics and all this fancy stuff that's real cool and all these things. And so, but what about one of the greatest untapped force multipliers that any of us at our facilities can really invest in, and that's increasing the quality and effectiveness of our workforce. So having human talent, having high-level skilled talent is a game changer. I mean, it's been, you read every year, they'll put out, quotes from, the top CEOs, around the country, and all of them will always in their top three will be what's one of the biggest challenges, and it'll always be having the talent to execute the plan. And so investing in that workforce is a big force multiplier. So Tim, are there ways to increase that effectiveness of your staff in today's, kind of what are we seeing?
Yeah, for sure. And it was interesting because I was just having that. You were talking about the plant you were in. I was in a facility week before last. They were in the middle of transitioning to some robotics. And they had, in this particular plant, they were making containers, like plastic containers. And they had on one line, they had a robotic arm that was picking these off of the machine that was producing the plastic containers and putting them in boxes. On the other lines, there were people doing it. And again, the pace and the speed, it was definitely seeing force multiplication going on there. So as far as people, though, several companies are approaching this in, traditional ways and then some non-traditional ways. So, for example, we know statistically that companies are spending a lot more on their HR, on focusing on talent acquisition, about 8 or 10% increase a year on HR spending. There's things like hiring bonuses, paying for referrals, paying your employees to refer other employees to your company. People are doing increased or creative benefits to try to, again, bring in higher quality, higher skilled employees into their facility to be able to do more with less. Some of these creative benefits we've heard about are like childcare, paying for childcare, health clubs, mental health care. So there's a lot of use of job boards. Everybody's heard of ZipRecruiter and Indeed, and they're using those and even hiring their own recruiting staff. There's even some more non-traditional ways that people are trying to enhance the caliber of their staff to provide the capability that they need. So apprenticeships, a lot of companies are doing paid tuition, 100% paid tuition to local technical trade schools, partnering with tech schools, providing scholarships for them. I've even heard of companies that are paying people just to show up for an interview. And then if you show up for the interview and get the job, we'll pay you an extra bonus to show up the first day. So people are trying to do some creative things to bring in the people that they need. So, but what about some other thoughts?
Well, yeah. So like I said a minute ago, I'm not a military guy, but I think we can take a lot of advantage of and inspiration from, as Tim said a minute ago, one thing that the military is really, really good at is planning and assessing risk and looking for these ways to create a more efficient, program. So, doing more with less, and multiplying your capabilities using these innovative TTPs, that Tim talked about. I've been around Tim long enough to know that everything in the military has a 3 letters that all stand for something.
That's right.
And so, according to Forbes, every business, their quote was, every business needs force multipliers to survive. So, in today's personal staffing environment, business must find an advantage that enables them to thrive. Tim, we're out there today and we're getting ready to do a couple talks at some different, shows. I don't know what the timing of this podcast is going to be, so it probably come out after, but we're doing a talk at the Connected Manufacturing show, and we're doing one at Pack Expo. This will definitely be out before that. But that talk is about how to not just survive, but to thrive and in this skilled trade shortage. So, kind of talking into this whole thing. So what are a few ideas to consider that enables you to do more in this austere environment?
Yeah. So, the idea, again, just trying to connect this with the force multiplication concept. So remember, the idea is, how am I able to take a smaller force and do more with it? Because the reality is, and we talk about this a lot, you're not going to be able to get all the numbers of guys you used to be able to get in the pen. So you got to be able to figure out how to leverage the smaller staff that you're going to have to bring more firepower to the fight, so to speak. How to bring more skilled people into your facility. So, to enable your staff to become a force multiplier. Well, there's some things we're going to talk about here today, and one of them is your current staff. upskilling your current staff. Upskilling, if you're not familiar with this term, basically is taking somebody who's got some experience, got some training, taking them and giving them additional training and skill exposure to other skills and technology to allow them to go from here to here in terms of what they could do on the job. So when you go about doing this, what we see a lot of companies do is they just say, well, training must be good, so we're just going to train everybody. And you kind of shotgun this approach to training across everybody, and it really misses a target. So here's some things to think about when you're considering upskilling as a tactic or part of your strategy for this. Find out exactly what skills you're missing. Is it PLC programming? Is it troubleshooting? Maybe it's a certain robotic equipment that you use. You don't have anybody who has expertise in that because it's made in Germany, and you don't have anybody that understands that. So what are your gaps? What is missing? And then ask yourself the simple business question. If I had more of this skill, the ROI, the return on my investment to upskill this is far greater. So you get one or two people upskilled and trained on a critical piece of equipment that produces high ROI. That is a force multiplier. You're using fewer people to do more. For example, find a specialized training partner. We are big fans of an organization called SACA. SACA stands for Smart Automation Certification Alliance. Urge you, if you're not familiar with SACA, go to their website. This is a nonprofit organization. It's a consortium of businesses in the manufacturing space. They're partnered with companies like Rockwell, like Boeing, like Kohler, and many others to try to provide a certification process where people can get trained and certified at a certain level so you know what you're getting. So SACA, it's a nonprofit, and their mission, stated mission, is to develop and deploy modular Industry 4.0 certification for a wide range of industries. So get the skills you need. You can do specific modular training for those skills. And another thing you think about is who on your team is your subject matter expert, the guy that you have to call in the middle of the night. Find that SME, that subject matter expert, empower them to train others on your team, and then reward people that achieve higher skills. Give them a benefit for doing that. So don't lower the bar, raise the bar, and then recognize those people. I'm thinking about the subject matter experts. So in special forces, like the Navy SEALs, the Navy SEAL team, what they often do is they'll go into a country, a theater of operations where we're partnered with an ally. Maybe it's a country that doesn't have advanced military. The SEALs go in there and they'll train 100, 200 people in some of these advanced tactics. And now you've got a 6 or 8 person team that's trained 100, 200 other people in some of those tactics. Now you're going to force multiplier. That's the same concept here. Train people to do the job.
Yep. No, I think it's a great example. And so, and part of it is, Tim, you're right. It's, SACA, which you mentioned a minute ago. I just heard last week I was meeting with a guy and a large company. I won't mention their name. But, they just partnered with SACA to, companies need to identify, as you were saying, where is our staff in their level of technology? So they were going to do Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3. Then they knew who to deploy to these different problems.
Right.
With what we do, we're providing an augmented workforce, which is what I'm going to talk about here as another, way to have this force multiplier. But in that, part of the reason, why in what we do, Tim, is through things like SACA, through other types of upskilling, other types of training. We're in our very extensive vetting process. We're doing that same thing. We're saying, we're not just giving you somebody that may or may not know how to do that. This is what they know. This is what they don't. And as you can apply that, it creates that effectiveness or that efficiency in that. So, but anyhow, so another one is an augmented workforce. So by an augmented workforce, we're saying, if you're a facility out there and you've got a certain amount of local talent, but the reality is, as we all know, there's a pretty good chance, that there's not enough local talent. There's either not enough local people, staff, or if they are, there's not enough who have the talent level that you need. And so augmenting your workforce with the right people, with the critical skills and the experience required and where you need it. And to do that, you're going to have to probably partner with a company, like ours, or somebody that does something similar to what we do in finding you that, that talent. And so by adding, that outside personnel to address the gaps in your in-house team. And by that, the multiplication, the force multiplier, then your plant's running more efficient, your teams are in a better position and so forth. And so, there's a few reasons, I'd be thinking, well, why would I add non-permanent staff? These people, they don't technically, work for us, you're bringing them from the outside. Well, there's some really practical reasons as to why you would use, you would supplement or augment your staff, just the simple cost savings. You only pay for the time they spend working. So assuming that you're partnered with the right company that's bringing you people in, skilled trade individuals in, guys or gals, that have that, our average person that we put on the field has 5 to 10 years of experience. Well, by nature of that means you're not spending a lot of money on training and tons of onboarding and all the other things. And obviously in our case, there are employees. So, we pay the benefits and so forth. So you're basically getting the impact, the multiplier of the results. And then, as I said, that gives you that instant expertise, and so, having somebody that can show up and be able, other than learning the basics of the production floor and whatnot, they have the skills. And so they're able to, versus, I don't know here, I'm going to talk really ignorant here, like I know something about the military. And so, but the difference between, a Navy SEAL and somebody that's going to boot camp, there's a pretty, I'm assuming there's a gap.
There's a little bit of a gap. Yeah, a little gap. Yeah. And the other thing, it's just kind of connected with what the military has done is that depending on the operation that you're doing, there is a kind of an a la carte approach to the military. It used to be just overwhelming force. Anymore is an a la carte approach where you pull together the parts and pieces you need for the mission. You get the expertise you need. You put a temporary force together, a task force together to be able to achieve the mission. And then many of those go back to their parent organization. So this has worked very effectively for the last 20, 30 years in the military and in other organizations. The same thing can apply here. You get the right expertise for the right time at the right place that you need to augment to allow you to complete your mission. So it makes great and makes perfect sense. So we talked about, and again, we're going through the idea of augmented workforce. Why would we do this? Brett, you talked about cost savings. You got expertise immediately. Your productivity obviously increases because your current staff doesn't have to, they've got help instead of they're trying to babysit new people, and I'm not saying that disparagingly, but it's a fact. The other thing is the scalability. We talk about that all the time. The ability for you to expand and retract as you need to. Today's manufacturing environment, you've got to be able to move quickly, be agile. So you don't have to worry about laying off people, rising overhead, hiring, firing. Basically, you can do trial expansions. You can do short-term projects. You can capture windows of opportunity and scale up and down quickly using this augmented workforce. Additionally, it allows you, when you use a company like, in our case, use Skillwork, we have access to a much larger talent pool than you do. The fact of the matter is that just this week, we've got, we're approaching about 1,000 candidates that we've looked at. Skilled trades technicians that we're looking at in-house here. And I would challenge anybody listening to this. Are you seeing that many come across your talent acquisition team? Probably not. And we're not knocking them. We're just saying that's what we do 24/7 every day. We're really good at it. We have access to a larger talent pool, and it'll overcome, as you mentioned, your local talent pool. It overcomes that by bringing assets from around different parts of the country. So not only scalable and access, but flexible. Flexibility again, you've got the flexibility. You can control what you need to do rather than being constrained by a completely fully staffed full-time workers. Keep your core team, focus on them getting completely upskilled, make them your A team guys, and then add as and when you need it. The bottom line is going to give you a competitive advantage over your competitors. While they lean on traditional approaches, you're going to be much more like, well, you're going to be much more like the U.S. military that can go in an extremely rapid fashion and be able to deploy all across the world and be highly effective. And that's the same thing we're talking about here with you, using this concept of force multiplication.
Yeah. So, we understand because we deal in it every day. And so, a lot of times we have to, and I think we're pretty good at walking through the initial objections. Matter of fact, we encourage companies that we work with to ask us all those questions. Let's talk about it, because if you really need to buy in to where this is going. We just did a recent podcast on Paint the Future, and so it's that concept. So what are the objections? One of the things we hear, maybe almost probably more than the cost question, which I'll talk about here in a second, but that is, well, we only want full-time employees, and
hear it every day.
And so even if they're going to use us, they want us to bring them the talent, they want to hire them, and then they want us to go away and everybody rides off, into the sunset. And so it's just not reality. It's not really what works there. Part of the fact is when we really start to unpack it, and if you're honest with yourself, if you hire, for everybody that you're hiring locally, right now, the best numbers that we hear is that your retention rate is maybe 50%. So the reality is you already have a workforce that's turning over.
Right.
And so the difference is you're bringing in a workforce, you're trying to teach them, you're investing a lot of dollars, to get them trained up. And then what you do, they don't stay anyhow. So the idea that what an augmented workforce is much different, because, people say, well, we got this special culture and we got this and we got that. And so we need to make sure, well, if you properly use an augmented workforce, they really integrate and they really become just part of that team. You just have a higher level of skill set, but by the way you're doing it.
I'll be the devil's advocate. Yeah, but the cost. What about the cost? I don't want to pay for that. You guys cost too much.
Yeah, it's anybody who's sold anything in their life. I think even including, I don't even know how much Kraft macaroni and cheese costs, but I know it's not very expensive. About 49 cents a box or something. And so I don't recommend it. Well, I don't care. You can buy it if you want to. I'm a proponent.
We love Kraft. It's a great company. We love to work for you. To disregard what he said about Kraft.
So I was talking about the I don't know whether it's healthy or not healthy. It doesn't matter. My grandkids like it.
Let's
so
talk about
it. But the reality is, even something, the point is even something that's inexpensive, people will still go, there's always a cost conversation. And obviously, with when you're utilizing somebody to bring you talent, whether it's a headhunter, whether it's a travel staffing company like us, sure, there's a cost associated. There has to be, and so, it's not a challenging conversation, I don't think. I think it's one that, we have all the time, and just say, well, it's really your decision. We don't know what it's costing you to not solve the problem, but we know it has a cost. And that comes in downtime, in OEE, in plant efficiency. I was just in a plant a few weeks ago. They make applesauce, great company, great team there that we do work with. And the lady that's the plant engineer, basically, or runs the maintenance team there, she was saying that they, through this process and getting the right help and doing things, their OEE had gone from mid 50s to mid 70s. Well, if you're familiar with OEE and you're familiar with overtime and those kind of things, you know that that is significant dollars, and so really it comes down to not so much what it costs, and I know that sounds salesy, but what is it? What's the value, or what's it costing you not to? So basically, downtime is you've got to decide, what's it worth to you, and then the other one, which again I think sometimes gets overlooked. Every company, I don't know a company out there for the most part that doesn't say, our most important asset is our people. I'm sure we say it here too. But what you're really saying there is that we need a healthy culture. We need these types of things. Well, when you say that, but then you're understaffed and you're and under-talented, you really, the people that are working for you are basically looking at that and saying they don't really mean what they say.
And that is one of the objections we hear is, we have a unique culture here,
Yep.
and we agree. We're big on that. And what you just said. So do you really value your people if you're having them be, no quality of life and working tons of overtime? You're not getting them upskilled or giving them opportunity. And not only that, but you can make your distinct culture, your personality, your aptitude that you require a requirement that you levy on a company like ours. Bring us people that have this skill set, not only the skills, but we want them to have this sort of aptitude, this personality. We focus on that a lot, putting the right people in the right facility. So the last kind of pushback, the objection we get is that staffing companies like you guys don't give us quality candidates. And usually they don't say it that nicely.
Yeah.
So I was just in a facility again when they used a local temp staffing company, and we are not that. We've got a whole podcast talk about the different. We don't do temp. Those are our employees. We care about them. We take good care about them. This organization is not a particularly large facility that they had either. 15 temp staff workers a week turnover that they have to bring on board.
Oh, yeah.
15 a week, and that their HR, that's all they're doing is managing that.
Yep.
It's a revolving door. That is not us. So if that's your position on behalf of those of us in this realm, I guess we apologize because that is not how we represent ourselves. And I agree that not all staffing companies are alike. Make sure you get the right partner. Really make sure you get the right partner. You don't have to settle for low quality employees. You don't have to settle for a low quality staffing company that's just focused on numbers. That is not what many are out there. And I can certainly tell you that Skillwork, we are focused on high quality. We take care of our employees. We want them to be a good fit, not only for you, but we want to be a good fit for our technicians. We care about them and we want them to show up and help. We want them to be a force multiplier day one. Are they guaranteed? Is your staffing company, they guarantee their people? Do you got to pay ahead of time or do you only pay for the work you get? So, is your staffing company, are they focused on your required skill set? Are they boring down to know exactly what you're looking for? If they aren't, look for a different company that can give you what you need. Don't settle for less. And, we ask you to give us an opportunity to prove that to you. So this idea of force multiplication, it's a military concept. You're starting to hear it more and more in the business world and leadership and staffing discussions. It's time to maybe think about your current TTPs and is there a way that you can bring to bear a way to do more with less, to multiply the capability or force, to put that hammer in the hand of your carpenter, so to speak. So we encourage you to take a lesson from forward-leaning thinkers and tacticians who figured this out. And they figured out that the edge between winning and losing battles, and this is where lives are at stake. Maybe that's not the case in your company, but winning or losing is important. So take advantage of limited resources available and consider creative ways to make your staff into a force multiplier. I encourage you to dig more into this. Reach out to us if you want to engage us in dialogue, or if you would like us to talk to you about how we can bring what we've developed here into your organization and be a force multiplier for you. So, Brett, any final thoughts before we wrap up for today?
No, I just think, like you said, we're in a season. I think we're leaning more into to recognizing, Tim, like you said, there's, you got to make tactical decisions, and the difference between winning and losing, whether it's in sports or wherever it is usually sometimes down to a couple key plays or a couple key decisions. And so the talent game, the talent search, having the right talent is so critical to your ability to win and lose, and then having the right tactics to do that, and in this concept, to be able to multiply the productivity, the efficiency, and improve your culture, by making those decisions, I think is really critical.
Awesome. So I knew someday that 25 years of military would be useful. And here it was on the podcast all this time. And
I know me as a taxpayer, I'm glad that we
finally got your money's worth there. So again, just as an aside, we do greatly value our military, former military out there that serve our country. Big part of our core here. So thank you for those of you that serve. Many of you may have got a chuckle at using force multiplication here in this, but hopefully it made sense to you. Again, we appreciate the time you spend listening to our podcast. We want to encourage you to check out our other podcast that we do here at Skillwork called The Proud Skill Worker. It's from their perspective, the skilled tradesman perspective. Do yourself a favor and listen to the voices of those that are out there on the front line, and you'll hear a lot of what we talk about here and how it matters to them that they're being employed in this way. Again, we appreciate the time. Until next time, God bless.